Hello and welcome to another episode of Chad Sports Talk. Once again, I'm putting this lovely face in front of this camera, speaking to you, giving you my 3 pesos worth of information and just buffoonery dealing with the college football realignment. Now, there's been a lot of speculation floating out there and about where certain teams could go because the pack is now down to 4. So now it's just a 4-pack of wine coolers. Florida State flirted with the idea of leaving the ACC early. It's now come to light that they are staying. Notre Dame was trying to push to get Stanford, Cal, and SMU added to the ACC, and they were blocked. Now they've kind of made enemies within the conference. And there's still talks that Stanford can still go either ACC or Big Ten. There's a lot of speculations. The Big Ten now is going up to 18. The Big 12 will be at 16. I mean, it is a rough time frame right now in the FBS landscape, especially for the Power 5 realm. And I'm going to go back to another time frame. Go back to a time frame that was roughly about a month and a half ago that I did this exact same video, but with the concepts of another conference imploding. It's not that long ago that there was a lot of videos about a possible Big 12 collapse once Texas and Oklahoma leaves, and how the Pac-12 could then poach teams and the Big 10 and SEC and all that. How quickly the prey became the predator. The Big 12 then plucked schools from the Pac-12 and let the Pac-12 become a carcass or just a sliver of what they once were in this 100-year-old conference. But let's just dive into an alternate universe, shall we? Let's just speculate and conjure up ways of things that could possibly happen. Now, some of these realignment scenarios could play out, and the SEC will not break up, the Big 10 won't break up, the Big 12 won't break up. The Big 12 got themselves in a very nice position that has them a leg up over the ACC. Terms of television contract and money per school. In this alternate reality, the ACC is also dismantled because they have one of the worst television contracts of the power conferences outside the Pac that have none after a certain time frame. And this is just another thought experiment. So like I said, something I came up with, like I said, back in early July. And we're going to dive right back into it. And we'll just start off with the Big Ten. We know the Big Ten now up to 18 after allowing Oregon or adding Oregon and Washington to the fold, getting 4 West Coast teams, become a coastal conference. And I've already speculated that they're going to go more beyond that, and I think 24 might be the limit where the power conferences would then essentially break away and kind of form their own level in college football. They pretty much do already because it's pretty much the Power 5 and then the Group of 5 and FCS. I may come up with that video at later time frame, but this is going to just concentrate on the possibility of the birth of mega conferences. Like I said, this is a video I've kind of done early in July and kind of rehash it, and we'll go back into the Big 12. The Big 10. Like I said, they're back up to 18. We're going to 18, and I've already speculated they're going to add a few teams here and there. And I've been on Twitter, and I got pushback on some of that. So here are the teams that I consider. I think Stanford and Cal will get added. I think Notre Dame would get added. If this is the only path for Notre Dame to get into a playoff system, this is when Notre Dame will join a conference. And then to complete it to 24, they'll grab Virginia, North Carolina, and Duke. Now, looking at the addition of these schools, Notre Dame is the really big prize right there in terms of football. But the thing is, with the Big Ten, there's many factors that goes into the fact of them adding schools. Yes, they like to get football talent because that's where the money's at. They also want to go into new areas where you get better opportunities, maybe even more viewers, which means more money generated. So going like the big areas like LA, Seattle, Portland, New York City, and possibly trying to get those type of targets. And then expanding the footprint of the Big Ten outside of the geographical area of the Great Lakes. That's exactly what they're doing. I think Cal and Stanford would be perfect for them, the AAU members. And that's another aspect you got to look at. The Big Ten will not grab anyone unless they are a member of the AAU. They must be a member of AAU before they are allowed to join the Big Ten. Now, once they end, they can change their status or get kicked out of AAU in Nebraska's case. All the schools being added are all AAU. Stanford and Cal will get you into the San Francisco Bay Area. Also, highly touted academic institutions. The Big Ten has a huge aspect when it comes to academic standards. Cal and Stanford meet or exceed those standards. Notre Dame has been on the radar forever. As an Irish fan, I've always said they belong in the Big Ten. If you get majority of their rivals in there, you can have 5-lot games between Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, USC, and Stanford every single year. Like they used to. Now, the ones that I got to push back for was going down into the ACC and grabbing Virginia, North Carolina, and Duke. And someone stated, grabbing North Carolina and Duke is like grabbing Utah and BYU. And it's dumb. No, it is not. North Carolina is highly targeted by both Big Ten and SEC because of basketball, not because of football. Yes, I understand football is the big money maker here. Basketball is a distant second, but still generates a huge amount. And having a blue blood program like North Carolina would be huge. I mean, especially when you have programs like UCLA, Indiana, Michigan State, Michigan. Illinois has had some good basketball programs. So there's basketball programs in the Big Ten that can make noise. And bring in the blue bloods like North Carolina and Duke, it brings that heat of rivalry into the Big Ten. I think they'll be all in. And they also tap in Virginia. So make sure you keep the South's oldest rivalry a conference game. Ensures that it continues to go. It's a no-brainer. Now, remember that the Big Ten is only going after AAU programs. Georgia Tech and Miami will also be on the radar. Also, major metropolitan areas for them to go into. So I can see the Big Ten going down there as well. But who will be the third? That was another issue because they're not going to just grab Notre Dame or North Carolina without Duke or Virginia. And vice versa for one of the other ones. Do they go into Pittsburgh? Grab the Panthers? Do they try to get Kansas to leave without K-State? In this scenario, now one would think the safest option and probably the more logical way this possibly could go with Virginia, North Carolina, and Duke. But I can also see Miami and Georgia Tech being added in here at some point, and maybe they try to find a third member that's AU that they can sneak off from somewhere else, and the other possibility is Pittsburgh. Then we head to the SEC. Now the SEC right now has stated they're not going looking past 16. But I guarantee if the ACC was to implode, they will be feeding on those members and snagging them up as quickly as possible. And some of the quickest ones they'll grab will be Clemson and Florida State. I think those two being added would be a no-brainer. This is something that they do. This is something the SEC does. They go after football powerhouses to create this Super League. And they don't really venture too far out of their geographical area. They've kind of punched here and there to kind of get them out there. It's like when they went to 12, that's when they went to Arkansas and South Carolina. When they went to 14, they went to Texas and Missouri, went further west. 16, they're going into Oklahoma. So they're not going to stretch too far. The areas they really want to head into is probably Virginia and North Carolina. And they probably will go more northeast in that aspect. So that's where I think Virginia Tech and NC State will come into play. They'll give into those two regions, give them a little extra breathing room. Virginia Tech will probably do some battles with Tennessee. NC State, Clemson has a rivalry going. And then that's where I start kind of trying to figure out where other programs could go. I can see Miami getting added if the Big Ten is to snag them. And, triple down in the state of Florida. I can see Louisville getting added to bring a Commonwealth Cup game as a conference game between them and University of Kentucky. And then one scenario, I brought in Georgia Tech, Wake Forest. Georgia Tech was a founding member of the SEC. So I can definitely see them coming in as well. Making good old-fashioned hate a conference game. Wake was just a stretched opponent. Maybe someone they don't go after, but they have Vanderbilt, and Wake is very similar to Vanderbilt in terms of athletics. But I decided to go a different direction. Decided to not go west. Decided to have them go after some Big 12 opponents. Bring in Oklahoma State. So that way Bedlam is now a conference game. And brought in Baylor, another program south of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but gives them another Texas program, another foothold in Texas. So yeah, a little triple down Texas, triple down Florida. Two of the huge talent-rich areas, football craze communities. Ensure there's two programs in the state of Kentucky, state of South Carolina, and the state of Oklahoma. They kind of go with Alabama and Mississippi, as well as Tennessee. So this way, the SEC doesn't stretch too far, still keeps within their geographic footprint. And they do add some good quality football programs and good programs overall to kind of help balance the equation in the SEC to create the right balance. You don't want too many teams that has a possibility of winning your national title, because then no one wins a national title. You balance it out where you have your heavy hitters, your main eventers, then you have your mid cards, then you have some of your preliminary guys. That's how you stack, boxing UFC cards. You make sure, your big money opponents like Alabama, Oklahoma could face off in like the SEC championship. Or maybe do like, a mini playoff where maybe Oklahoma and Georgia and Texas and Alabama all battle to see who's going to, go to Atlanta. But still have enough teams to fill in a bowl schedule. So yeah, there's going to be some, teams here and there I can see go differently, but once again, I'm looking at creating a 24-team league and going from there. So that leaves the Big 12. Who's out is the Big 16, but take away the 2, now they're back down to 14, who they grab. They complete the dismantle of the PAC and ACC all get merged together to create a huge conference like I did in my first video. So Washington State, Oregon State definitely get added. Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, BC, Syracuse, and Pitt all join this new Big 12 adventure. And then they bring in Memphis, South Florida, and SMU to round that off to 24. I know there's no teams in San Diego, no teams in California, especially San Diego, because San Diego State's been a highly touted one the Big 12 is possibly looking at trying to add, as well as UConn. So I get that aspect, but I also put down there that I think that Memphis and SMU, definitely SMU, I think is on the top priority list. I think Memphis is right behind them. I think South Florida is another program that should be added as well. I also think UConn could be added, but UConn's one of these, they only want their football program. They want to maintain basketball in the Big East, and I don't think these conferences will want that. They want an all-in aspect. So I think that's how that one will play out. So that'll make the Power 5 back down to the Power 3. 24 teams each. Lock 5. Guaranteed 5 opponents every year. Those are your core rivalries. I already did that with Notre Dame and the Big 10 with their 5 locked. The SEC can maintain a lot of theirs. You want to create super divisions and maybe have an 8-team regular season, maybe a 4-team playoff to determine the conference champion. I think it's probably what's going to end up happening. It's creating a 4-team playoff to determine who wins the conference, and do another playoff to determine who is the national champ. I think this is where it's going. For the group, I took them down to 4 16-team conferences and called up some more from the FCS and still maintain independent schools. Independent schools will be the military academies. I left them independent, so that way they don't interfere with anything. And that tied into conference politics and wrangling. They maintain their federal status. They ensure that they play each other, have ties to the former conferences. So Air Force have ties to Mountain West, Navy with the American, Army, put them with the MAC, where they have ties, where they can fill in some of the schedule of some of those teams. So it's quick to fill in the blanks, basically. But for the Mountain West, so they're going to lose Air Force. They'll grab New Mexico State and UTEP from Conference USA. That way, those two plus New Mexico have all the rivalry games in conference. I think that makes complete sense. Then grab the Montanas, as well as Sacramento State. That's just to even it out. For the Sun Belt, they grab Sam Houston, Jacksonville State from Conference USA as well. Brings them up to 16. Nothing changing there. For the MAC, UConn, UMass football only. Something they want. Something the MAC will take, even though UMass was in there previously, but they wanted UMass to be a full member. UMass want to stay in the A10. So if UMass brings in someone else, I think it'd be more beneficial to have 2 members that are football only, balance the schedule out. And then the MAC then look at 2 non-football schools to come in, like maybe bring in a Binghamton in the East, or find like a school out west somewhere like Bradley or Valpo or something like that to balance out the East-West scenario. And then bring in North Dakota State, South Dakota State. Why these schools have not been called up yet, I have no idea. North Dakota State's been running amok and pretty much dominating the FCS since they joined. And it's time for them to take their show up to the next level. And That leaves the American. We'll take the remaining of Conference USA, fill in the blanks. That's your 16 team group of 5 down to group of conferences. I think that's where they'll peak at. I think they can have their own separate championship. And there you go. That is the way I think things could possibly go. I know the 24-member leagues will be a nightmare to schedule, because you would not be able to schedule enough games to make these members happy, because if you schedule too many conference games, then you'll have not enough out-of-conference games to generate money. They'll eliminate rivalry games altogether, and that's one thing that I like about college football is the rivalry games, the history behind those. Unfortunately, right now, conferences don't care anymore when it comes to that. They like to preserve some of them, like Deep South oldest rivalry, the Iron Bowl, South's oldest rivalry, the game. But like the Apple Cup, it's getting tossed. The border war between Missouri and Kansas got tossed. The Backyard Brawl, yeah, they kind of had a couple games back to back, but that got tossed for a long time. So we need to find a way we kind of balance the conferences. Don't get them too big. The problem is they're getting too big. But try to maintain as many rivalries as you possibly can. Unfortunately, if the ACC breaks up, all the North Carolina programs will not be in the same conference. They will not maintain games against each other anymore like they used to. And you'll start seeing them separate. But let me know what you think. There's like I said, a few scenarios that could play out to go either direction. I can definitely see Virginia, North Carolina, and Duke somehow making to the SEC. And Miami, Georgia Tech, and Pittsburgh going to the Big Ten. So there's definitely a few scenarios where this can actually play out. And I'd like to see your thoughts. And it's weird to kind of see how things kind of play out between people, how they kind of see things kind of fit. I can see multiple different angles how this one goes. This is just one particular lane it possibly could go. I can also throw out a different lane how things could possibly go. Are these feasible? I don't know. To tell you the truth, right now with college football, I have no idea. It's scary how this is going. How they're just throwing tradition out the window so they can make a buck. I know the game is evolving. The way it's being shown is evolving. But that's some of the fun aspects of college sports was the traditions and the old rivalries. I guess it's just like the simpler time frames that came to college sports. But like I said, let me know what you think down below. Be mindful, be respectful. Let's have a civil conversation about this. I know this is, like I said, different aspect where this can possibly go. Like I said, the feasibility is looking more plausible now than it did a month ago, especially with the Big Ten at 18, or soon to be 18. I can see them go to 20 before it's all said and done. 24 wouldn't be that far off the mark. But if you go 20, I think you do 9 game schedules, have the two sides face off. But they'll ruin a lot of rivalries because you'll never see the other side. But anyways, enough talk, more typing. And if you like what I provide you, what content I provide, hit that thumbs up for me. It really pleases you two guys. Really helps the algorithms out. You can also subscribe. Doesn't hurt. Doesn't cost you anything. But 90% of you not subscribed. What else you got to lose? Once you do that, make sure you click that bell icon, turn on notifications until next time I post any more content on my channel. And I will see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.